Welcome to J&B's Vikings Cavalcade. We're here with you for a second episode, and we're a few days into free agency, and the Vikings, as you know, have made a few signings. Most significant one being wide receiver Greg Jennings from the rival Green Bay Packers. Take that, Green Bay.
Yes, take that.
I just can't wait to play them because we're going to have their number one. Well, he was one of their top weapons.
Yep.
And we're going to be playing against them, just giving them a taste of their own medicine. That's just going to be great, just like when Favre came here.
I hope he scores 10 touchdowns in the first game.
I hope he scores 10 touchdowns in both games combined against Green Bay.
Yeah.
Not likely to happen, but the great thing about the Jennings signing, too, is it finally gives Ponder someone other... I mean, he had Percy Harvin here, but Percy Harvin's not a number one receiver. He is a very athletic slot receiver, but he can't play on the outside like Greg Jennings can. And Greg Jennings also can play in the slot if we need him to be there. So, I mean, it's just a good overall signing.
I think so, too. I mean, it was I'll never forget where I was when I heard about the Greg Jennings signing. I was actually laying in my bed, which is... Well, we're recording from my room today, so we're a few feet away from my bed. So I was just laying there.
That's the place.
All of a sudden, Meat Sauce comes on the radio and says, "We have signed Greg Jennings in that way that only Meat Sauce can."
Of course, Meat Sauce. Good friend of mine from K-Fan. But, yeah, I was at Applebee's at work and saw it on the TV, and then there's a bunch of guys there in the back that are big Vikings fans, so I went back there and told them. Everyone's cheering. I even told some of the customers because they had Vikings hats on and everything, so you know they're Vikings fans. So I just went up to them like, "Here we got Jennings," and man, they were excited. But another signing we got was Matt Castle. Not quite as big as the Greg Jennings signing, but he's coming in to be a backup to Christian Ponder primarily. And I'm just sick of... Have you heard anything on the NFL Network or any other major sports stations? They're all just saying that, oh, no, it's an open competition between Christian Ponder and Matt Castle. No, it's not.
I have something to say about that. It's from someone that you know quite well and someone that I know a little bit from talking to him at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh, I know who this is.
Paul Charchian, as a matter of fact. He was on Twitter the day the Vikings signed Matt Castle, and he sent out a tweet that I found pretty hilarious. And he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Why is there so much excitement about Matt Castle? We're talking about a guy who lost his starting job to Brady Quinn."
Yeah, and...
No doubt he's better than Joe Webb, but still, a guy that lost his starting job to Brady Quinn. I don't think Ponder could play poorly enough to warrant that kind of substitution.
No, I think he's very safe. And, you know, the only way I could see Castle coming in and starting is if Ponder gets hurt. Because I'm not the biggest Ponder fan that there is out there. But at the same time, Rick Spielman is Rick Spielman. He's the GM of the Minnesota Vikings. And he's said from day one since the season ended, Christian Ponder will be our starting quarterback next season. So I don't see how a guy like Matt Castle is going to change that.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I'm not going to go into that. I was just going to say something about Spielman also said the Vikings wouldn't trade Percy Harvin, but you know what? Let's just leave stuff like that in the past and move on.
Just to correct you, they didn't say they wouldn't trade Percy Harvin. They said that they had no intent of trading Percy Harvin.
Oh.
I think they always knew that was going to happen, but you don't just openly go out and say, yeah, we're trading Harvin, just because that's what the Jets did with Revis, and I mean, it just didn't work out. Look, Revis is still a Jet.
Yeah, and he got a signing bonus
pick.
too.
Yeah, we got a first-round pick for Percy Harvin, and a seventh and a third next year. No one thought that kind of... That was his kind of value. Everyone was thinking maybe you get a second and a fourth, something like that. But man, I think we got the better end of that deal. And Percy Harvin is going to help the Seahawks, but at the same time, I think the Vikings well knew what they were doing when they signed Greg Jennings just a few days after.
Oh yeah, and going into that, we actually have some things to talk about in the upcoming NFL draft. I mean, you just mentioned we got 3 draft picks for Percy Harvin. Of course, one of them's not till next year, but we got a second first-round pick to use. So now we draft at the 23rd spot and the 25th spot. And everybody's saying there's, at least in the first round, there's solid depth at just about every position. I mean, you could go out and get a good wide receiver in the first round, a good linebacker.
Yeah, you really can in this draft especially. And I don't know about every position, but in the position of the Vikings areas of need, of course. I mean, cornerback is all of a sudden a need now that Winfield's gone. There's corners that are going to be there. I'm thinking a guy like maybe Desmond Trufant. He may go a little bit earlier, but if he was at 23, 25, we can get a steal in him. Marcus Trufant's younger brother, obviously. But and other guys in the linebacker class, I'm not a fan of Manti Te'o. I'm just not. But then again, I haven't seen a lot of his college games. The ones I have seen and the highlights, just yeah, he makes these interceptions, but that's one of the least significant parts about playing middle linebacker is getting interceptions. But the interceptions that came to were right to him. So and the tackles were average. I mean, I've seen better, but hopefully I'm wrong because it looks like he might be on the Vikings draft board at about 25.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Personally, I'd go wide receiver cornerback, to be perfectly honest.
I think I would too. And there's also a lot of talk about the defensive tackle position. But as you and I were talking about yesterday, I personally think that defensive tackle is an area you can address later in the draft, in the second, third round, because you have bigger needs right now. You got glaring issue at second wide receiver who's going to line up alongside Greg Jennings, but you also have the cornerback, linebacker, and defensive tackle. Just seems like a fourth priority right now. So why would you spend a first round pick on that? And you could even just go in free agency and get somebody. There's not a lot of bad options out there, but at the same time, if we do take a defensive tackle, one guy that I think will fit our system is Sylvester Williams, and we could probably get him at 25. But with the 23rd pick, I definitely think it's going to be a receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that was the sense I was getting even before the Vikings signed Greg Jennings. Now that they have, I think, well, now you can go out and hopefully get a good playmaker to complement Jennings, and I think Jerome Simpson might wind up being that number 2, or the guy we draft might wind up being that number 2.
I hope
Either
Simpson's
way,
not the
you're
number 2.
looking for a great complement to Greg Jennings, and I think you might be able to get that in the draft.
Mm-hmm. I really hope Jerome Simpson's not the number 2, though. I think whoever we draft has a better chance. But then where do you put Jerome? Because you're playing Jarius Wright to play your slot receiver. So does Jerome end up as a fourth receiver possibly?
Perhaps so. I mean,
it's about where I would put him. He is kind of a high risk, high reward kind of move because he didn't cost us anything.
Mm-hmm.
And he has potential, but he just hasn't played out. But maybe the second year in the offense will be better for him. The thing I didn't like about him, and no one really talked about this, but he was dropping a lot of passes last year.
Yeah.
Saw him drop at least 4 or 5 that I remember. So that always seems to be the Vikings' problem too. They bring in guys that drop passes that are supposed to be big. Troy Williamson, Bernard.
No, don't bring him up.
I'm sorry, but Troy Williamson.
God, there's a lot of bad memories there.
Oh, okay, well, I guess that speaks for itself. We won't talk about Williamson, but Bernard Berrian, he had one good year here in 2008, but then the last 3, what was he known for?
Dropping passes.
Yeah, and Simpson isn't. I don't think he's as Butterfinger as Bernard Berrian was, but I mean, you got to make clutch catches, and that's just something we haven't seen from Simpson.
Yeah, the thing he did, and we talked about this, I think, a few days ago. He did kind of catch on and get a little chemistry with Ponder late in the year, so maybe, hopefully, some of that will carry over into this season.
All right, and we did see a few good plays from him. There was that, I think it was against Tampa Bay, where he made a pretty nice downfield catch, one of the ones that actually worked. How many times in the Lions game in Week 4 did we see Christian Ponder try to throw it deep to Jerome Simpson? I remember 3 times, and 2 of those times was pass interference on Bentley for the Lions, but they still didn't work. It's like we always see the long pass, and I was never expecting it to work, but now we got Greg Jennings, so hopefully they do work because he is a much better receiver than what we have.
Yeah, hopefully Ponder's long ball can work. That's the thing about Ponder. We always talk about it. He doesn't have phenomenal arm strength, but I mean,
he has accuracy.
He's accurate enough
at times, but he can be very inconsistent. That's the thing I don't like about Ponder. If he played how he played against Green Bay in the last game of the season, you're not going to play like that every single game, obviously. But if you play to a high level like that for the majority of the season, we'd be having a different conversation here.
Oh yeah.
But this is a guy that throughout the first 5 weeks of the 2012 season, he looked like he was as drafted. He should have been the first pick overall, or first pick for the Vikings.
12th pick overall.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 12th pick overall in 2011. But then he kind of hit a slide and didn't he just didn't play well for about 4 or 5 games in a row.
Well, it's very hard to. Let's put it this way: it's very difficult to register less than 100 yards passing in the typical NFL game.
Oh gosh, how many times did we see sub 100-yard passing games from Ponder this year? I think 4 or 5.
I think about that many.
I think it was one that. Did you and I go to the Cardinals game, or was that me and someone else?
That was you and your dad. We went to the one before that.
Yep.
And he performed pretty well in that game.
Yeah, he did pretty well against the Titans, except for that interception in the last 2 minutes of the first half. That was horrible.
That was a fluke.
Yeah, but he had a couple of nice passes to Harvin, though. I'm sorry for saying Harvin. He's not a Viking anymore, so that doesn't matter. Anyway, we're going to take a break and come back with Hot Rod. You are listening to J&B's Vikings Cavalcade. Cavalcade. Stop making fun of me.
Just when you thought you'd gotten rid of us, we are back for a second segment on J&B's Vikings Cavalcade.
Yes, we are, and we are here with a good friend of mine named Josh, who goes by Hot Rod on the show. And how are you doing today, Hot Rod?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. So you excited about the Greg Jennings move, man?
Oh, I'm ecstatic about it. I was one of the people during the whole season just saying to the Packers fans, just wait till he's a Viking next year.
I know. It looked like it was going to happen from the start of the season, didn't it?
Yep. Every time we played, we played the Packers. The first two to meet on the field after the game were AP and Greg Jennings. That right there told me.
Yep. And they have a huge respect for each other, too, which I think is going to come into play in the locker room. Speaking of locker room, what does the loss of Antoine Winfield mean for the Vikings locker room now? I mean, they brought in a locker room guy like Greg Jennings, but that's going to be an absence that will be surely missed.
Yeah, that's going to be some big locker room shoes to fill. I mean, Antoine Winfield in the locker room was such a role model for all these young guys, and I mean, Greg Jennings obviously, he's that veteran aspect, but I don't think he's going to fill it out as well as Antoine.
Right, and I don't like the way they went about it either. I understand you had to re-sign Lodeholt and you needed more cap space, but Winfield's been a Viking for, 10 years now? And you just bring him in. He was there at Winter Park working out, and we just cut him, just out of the blue. I think you gotta. That's a little disrespectful for someone that's helped your team for so long.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's, look at last year, he was a Pro Bowler, he's 36?
Yeah, I think he's turning 36 pretty soon, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, even at how old he is, he's still he is probably still the hardest hitting cornerback in the league.
Oh, without a doubt.
He brings just this aspect to this dynamic aspect to the defense, to the secondary. It's going to be missed, and we're going to have to either draft someone or sign a veteran to get part of that back.
Absolutely.
Oh, hey Josh, this is Jake, I guess, Hot Rod, or whatever they like to call you, and I have a question for you. We just started with free agency a few days ago, and obviously the Vikings have done quite a bit already, and I know that free agency is like something that goes on all year long. Before the draft, do you think the Vikings should try and add anybody else in free agency right now?
Well, I've kind of been the one to, I kind of want us to go for Victor Cruz with the first round tender on him.
Really?
I think it would bring so much more to our offense.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And, I mean, already with Greg Jennings, they're going to have to either, if you stack the box on AP, you're going to force one-on-one on Greg Jennings, or you're going to have to take some out of the box, and it's going to spread. With Victor Cruz, it would open up the playing field.
Well, see, yeah, I would love Victor Cruz here. Just I don't know if Spielman would do it, though. He doesn't seem like a kind of guy that'll make a give up a first round pick for a player. Although, it would make sense, wouldn't it? I mean, Victor Cruz is your perfect slot receiver. He's probably a better slot receiver than Percy Harvin. You got him on the team and Greg Jennings. That's a passing attack right there. Weapons for Ponder.
And it's going to help Ponder grow. If we got Victor Cruz, or even if we drafted someone, he just needs more weapons. And when he gets more weapons, I believe we could see a Tom Brady type quarterback of Christian Ponder.
Ooh, might be a preposterous statement on K-fans got, but
that's a lofty prediction.
I sure hope so, though, man. It'd be awesome to have finally a good quarterback that can be here for 10, 15. I don't know about 15 years, but 10 years at least. A starting quarterback playing at a high level, that'd just be fantastic for Vikings fans. But say we are going to get a receiver in the draft. Do you think we're in a good enough position? We got 3 picks within the first 2 rounds. Do you think we're in a good enough position where we can wait until the 25th pick or maybe even the second round to get a receiver, or do we need to get one at 23?
I think we could get one at 25.
25?
As the way it sounds, only one receiver is going before we get our pick. So.
Oh, I don't know about that. There's Cordell Patterson, Tavon Austin might be gone, but I think it's either Tavon Austin or Keenan Allen might be there. But yeah, I mean, not a lot. There won't be a lot of receivers gone, but I think more than one will be.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Keenan Allen. I think if he's there, we're gonna pick him up.
Oh, absolutely. What is he, 6'3", 6'4"?
Oh, I think he's 6'4.5". He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's a beast, and he's a guy that can get you 1,000 yards a year too. So. It almost reminds me of not really the playing style, but kind of the same body type that Sidney Rice has.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I see that. He's more of the guy that go up and get the ball than run his route completely perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your take on Manti Te'o?
Manti Te'o. I don't know. I don't really care for him. I watched I don't know. I didn't really like him.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing in the first segment too. People are kind of high on him, and I've seen a lot of mock drafts. People have us taking Te'o at 25. I just don't like it. I think you can get better guys in the draft, like Alec Ogletree. I think could be a tremendous inside linebacker. And Te'o, he just seems slow. And at the combine, did you see him at the combine?
It was pretty brutal.
Yeah, he run a 4.8 and he blamed it on fatigue. You don't blame poor workout on fatigue when you're in the National Football League.
On a 40-yard dash?
Yeah.
You don't get fatigue on a 40-yard dash.
Just ridiculous. But who are some middle linebackers you can see the Vikings taking, whether it be in the draft or free agency?
Well, I know Urlacher's up there. I think even if we just picked him up for cheap, just for a year or two, it would just bring that veteran aspect to our linebacker core, and he could help teach our guys, help them progress.
Yeah, maybe like Audie Cole, who had a tremendous preseason last year. Vikings fans got psyched about him, but, we didn't see a lot of him during the regular season other than on special teams. But I don't know, if he plays like he did in the preseason last year, give him a year under Brian Urlacher, he could be a long-term answer even.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more of Audie Cole this year, whether it's starting or even just getting in the games as a linebacker throughout the game.
All right,
I think
man.
We'll see a lot of them.
Absolutely. We got one more question for you, then we're going to have to let you go, but this one's coming from Jake.
Yep. So with all the moves the Vikings have made here in free agency and the moves, hopefully good ones, that they'll make in the draft, with everything that happened last year with the Vikings going from 3 wins to 10 wins, how should Vikings fans feel about 2013 coming up?
Well, I tell you, I believe we're all excited. I mean, I'm predicting us to go 13-3 this year.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Wow. That'd be a number one seed just about.
We're going to give the Packers a run for that NFC North spot.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And you look throughout the division, who has made more significant moves than the Vikings? We signed Greg Jennings, a top 5 receiver. Packers haven't signed anybody. Bears haven't signed anybody. Lions have signed Chris Houston and maybe a couple defensive guys that are going to end up... Detroit's a place you go to die on defense. I mean, your career is over if you're playing for Detroit on defense. But
Yeah.
it's just I think it's going to be a really interesting year. And man, thanks for coming on the show with us today. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.
Yep. All right, that was Hot Rod, and he will be on the show more. Yeah, I'm excited about this year, man. I really am. I just think we've got a good thing going for us, and Ponder just needs. What have we always said about Ponder? He needs more weapons.
Yep.
And I think we're gonna get that this year. We got Greg Jennings. We're gonna get help in the draft. This could be a good year for Vikings fans.
Yeah, I mean, you give Ponder a few toys to play with. I mean, that's really what you'd want to go out and give any young quarterback to see what he has, whether it's excuses. Well, I mean, let me rephrase that. Ponder, he'll have almost no excuse this year if he plays poor. This is the year where we find out if Ponder truly is the guy. He showed flashes last year toward the end of the season and in the early part of the season, but this is the year where he has to try to play at that kind of level every week, not fall into a slump, and just play better overall, because there's really no excuse. You've got Greg Jennings to throw the ball to. That should instantly improve your numbers. If it doesn't, then it's probably you that has the problem.
Absolutely. This is a make or break year for Ponder, and we're going to find out. Spielman's not, if he doesn't have a good season with good weapons this year, and I mean, he's going to have a relatively good year if we get some weapons. I mean, who wouldn't at quarterback? But it's about wins. It's about, consistency. There's a lot of things that go into breaking down and starting an NFL quarterback, and if Ponder can be that guy, he needs to prove that this year. This is his year. Otherwise, I just don't think they're going to go another year with him.
I just don't know if they will either. And it's kind of sad to think, because you would think they'd give him enough time to develop, but the NFL is you move so quickly these days, and a team like the Vikings, you just feel is on the verge of breaking out, and if their quarterback holds them back, then I think it was that same kind of thing with Tavares Jackson. He was okay, but he was just never that good. And yet the team around him was pretty decent at the time, where you thought they could have maybe moved forward if he had been, the kind of 5-tool quarterback the Vikings are looking for.
Right, yeah, he was a project that just never worked out. And I've never had the same feeling about Ponder that I had about Jackson. Jackson, I kind of just knew wasn't going to turn out. Like, we saw after 2007, I want to say, because 2006 we saw him come in for a couple games and showed bits of potential, but then 2007, he couldn't stay healthy and he wasn't doing anything of significance. And 2008 even, 2008 was kind of the point where I'm just like, we got to give up on this guy. And I think that's when we did too, is when went out and got Brett Favre. But
yep.
I never had a good feeling that he was going to work out. Ponder, it could go either way. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. I think he's shown a lot of potential, and he's shown that he can win in clutch moments, especially last year against Green Bay. That was a must-win game, and he'd played the best game of his career, throwing for 3 touchdowns and no picks. But, the bottom line is just can he keep that up? Can he be consistent? We're going to take a break right now, though, and come back to you with a pre-recorded interview I had with a guy that claimed to be the Vikings know-it-all.
See you then. Hey there, folks. This is Jay from J&B's Vikings Cavalcade, and you are listening to J&B's Vikings Cavalcade right now.
And it's Branden here with you. Did you guys remember watching Pokemon as a kid? Back when it was only 150, not a million Pokemon? Well, guess who I have sitting right next to me right now? Professor Oak. Yes, the Professor Oak, who just happens to be a Vikings fan. How are you doing today, Mr. Oak?
I'm doing quite well, Mr. Lemke. Thank you.
That's good.
Here's a Pokédex. Do you want a Pokédex?
I don't see why I need one.
I've got the 3 original Pokemon over there. Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle.
Wow. I've never thought I would see Pokemon in real life until right now. That is really cool. That's really cool. Anyway, no. I don't want to see your Pokemon. I want to ask you some questions about the Vikings. You've been a fan all your life?
Yes, I have.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about your days as a Vikings fan.
Well, it all began back in 1961 when the team moved to Minnesota. See, lots of people don't know this, but in between my journeys as a Pokemon trainer and a Pokemon professor, I actually lived in Minnesota, and I watched professional sports. And one of the teams that came in that year was the Minnesota Vikings. Well, I quickly learned to love the NFL and all of its hard-hitting action, and the Vikings were my favorite team, and it's kind of remained that way ever since.
That is awesome. What do you think about the Greg Jennings signing? Are you psyched?
I think I am, definitely. It was like we went ahead and pulled off a legendary Pokemon. Or it was all about discovering... It was like discovering the next legendary Pokemon. Because now you've got something big here, and the Vikings seem like they're going a long way.
I really hope so. This is a season that is looking up for Vikings fans. Who do you think we're going to get in the draft?
Yeah, I'm really not sure, but I have heard some interesting stories about that Manti Te'o fellow with the fake girlfriend and whatever. Personally, I think he would have been much better off becoming a Pokemon trainer, but, you know, he doesn't live in this area, so I really couldn't reach him.
You couldn't recruit him?
Nope.
Well, I'm sure he wants to be a Pokemon master. But, anyway, how about Keenan Allen? What are your thoughts on him?
I think he's very good, too. And maybe I could recruit him. Wait, no, I can't recruit him. He's got to play for the Vikings. I would really enjoy that, because then they would have maybe the perfect complement to Greg Jennings.
I think they would as well. Who are a couple other receivers you could see us drafting?
I'm not really sure on that one, but I can't really name anybody besides the ones we just named, but...
Okay, so
the way
Pokemon
that I
master,
see
Vikings
it,
fan. I gotcha.
Yes. Well, the way that I see it, the Vikings need to build this wide receiving core the way that a Pokemon trainer builds the perfect team to take on the Elite Four at the end of their region.
And how's that?
Well, you've got to have a strong starter, which the Vikings, I think they have it in Christian Ponder. You've got to have, really strong support, which is the offensive line and specific wide receivers and Adrian Peterson. And you've got to have good defense, which you could go out and get a Pokemon like, I think, maybe, well, I guess I can't think at the moment, but go get a strong Pokemon to be your backbone.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly how you build a championship football team. I mean, a championship Pokemon team. It's my analogy for a championship football team.
Okay, well, I see you are still very heavily a Pokemon master. I'm going to ask you a few questions here. I'm going to give you a few Vikings players. If you had to compare them to one Pokemon, who would you compare them to? Let's start off simple. Let's go with Harrison Smith. Who would Harrison Smith be if he were a Pokemon?
Harrison Smith. I think Harrison Smith would be... I think he would be a Lucario.
I don't know who that is, but go on.
Oh, well, he's very hard-hitting and very fast.
Nice. I like that. All right. Adrian Peterson.
Oh, Adrian Peterson, he'd be the star of the show. He'd be a legendary Pokemon. He'd be Mewtwo.
Mewtwo. Nice. I like that. How about Blair Walsh?
Blair Walsh. A phenomenal rookie kicker. I don't know if there are any Pokemon equivalents to kickers.
And a Pro Bowler.
A Pro Bowler,
and
of
a
course.
Pro Bowler. He only missed 3 field goals the whole year.
I know that, and he kicked a 55-yard field goal like it was nothing in the season opener.
I might have to be a little bit generous here. He is just a kicker, but he is one hell of a kicker. What Pokemon is he?
Let's see. Who'd be a good kicker Pokemon? If I had to choose, I think that I would go with... Mew.
Mew and Mewtwo. Adrian Peterson, Blair Walsh. I like it a lot. All right, well, that was my short little interview here with Professor Oak. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for interviewing me. Are you sure you don't want a Pokédex?
I am sure I don't want a Pokédex. I don't want to make you feel bad. I don't see why I need one right now. But if I need one down the road, I will let you know.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And that was my interview with Professor Oak. I hope you guys liked it. Professor Oak seems like he's still very into Pokemon, huh?
Oh yeah, I mean he is a Pokemon master.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lifelong thing. You study Pokemon your whole life. When you're a Pokemon professor like that, there's always something new to learn.
I stopped studying Pokemon in 3rd grade, but man, it was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we will take a break and come back to you with the closing segment on Vikings Cavalcade. This is B from J&B's Vikings Cavalcade. Thank you for being born and listening to us.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to Vikings Cavalcade. Sadly, this is our last segment of the day.
Boo!
I don't think you people were expecting us to be on this long, but we are. We're trying out some new things, and we have a brand new segment to debut here today. We call it Yay or Nay.
Yay or nay. Basically what that is we got a list of free agents here who the Vikings could have potential interest in. This is pure speculation, I will say that right offhand. Some of these guys have been rumored to be of Vikings interest, but we will give you our opinion by saying yay or nay as to whether we want them to see them in purple next year, and give you a reason why as well. So the first guy on the list, we're going to start with linebackers. Middle linebacker Darryl Smith of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had a lot of good years in Arizona, one of the most underrated linebackers in the league. Yay or nay, Jake?
I'd like to say yay. I mean, the Vikings, they could still use some middle linebacker help, and the Vikings will probably end up getting it through the draft, but I'd say why not take a chance on someone who he is proven being in the league for so long.
Right, I'm gonna say yay too. The only thing that I don't like is coming off of a pretty horrific injury that he had surgery on in October. So a lot of NFL players do have surgery and come back and be just fine though. So I think it would be a pretty good investment, and it probably wouldn't come at a lot of money either, just because of that injury. Next guy, this guy is still, who knows what's going to happen with him? Brian Urlacher. We all know who that is, played for the Chicago Bears for multiple years, had a few good seasons. He is kind of past his prime, though, and not playing at as high of a level, but he does provide better experience. Yay or nay, Jake?
I say yay. He's got to have at least a couple good years left in him, and he's been, he's like the Ray Lewis of the NFC, basically. He's been playing at a high level for a long time. He's kind of slipped out of it, like you said, but he's still playing at a high enough level, I think, where he'd be useful to the Vikings, and he would provide that veteran leadership we're always talking about.
I am actually going to say nay. And the reason why, if we don't sign anybody else in free agency, I think, okay, take Urlacher. But there are a couple guys that I'm going to list here that I would rather have a sign. So, yay and nay, I guess I could say. Next guy on the list, Carlos Dansby, released by the Dolphins. He's a good player, and that's the guy that I would like to take, but I just don't know if we have the cap space. So I'm going to say yay on Carlos Dansby. What about you?
I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about Dansby, but I do think yay. Like I said, any linebacker help the Vikings can get, they should get. Whether that's through the draft, like I said before, or through signing a guy.
Absolutely. Why don't we go to the receivers now? Darius Hayward-Bay from the Raiders. What do you think?
I'm not sure on this one. I mean, honestly, I think the Vikings could probably get somebody better through this year's draft. And it'd be kind of ironic if the Vikings went out and signed the guy that Paul Charchian so lovingly refers to as Darius Hayward Bust on Fantasy Football Weekly.
Right. I'm going to say nay just because I don't want any Raiders.
There we go.
How about Laurent?
Straight from the horse's mouth.
Right. How about Laurent Robinson, recently released by the Jaguars? He didn't do anything with the Jaguars, but that's because he did struggle with a lot of concussion issues, but also because playing Gabbard's your quarterback. But in Dallas, we did see a few good years with him and Tony Romo. Actually, just one, I believe, but he got 11 touchdowns?
Yeah, 11 touchdowns. Nothing to scoff at.
And what was he playing? The slot, too. I mean, slot... We got Jarius right, but I wouldn't mind Laurent Robinson actually as the second guy. So I'm gonna say yay on Robinson. What about you?
I think so too. I think he would. like I said, I mean, he really only had the one spectacular year with Dallas, but I mean, Dallas throws a ton. He had a breakout year. It was too bad about what happened last year at Jacksonville, but I think he brings something to the table that could really help the Vikings.
Yeah, and he probably wouldn't cost a whole lot either.
Nope.
Next guy on the list is Branden Lloyd, former New England Patriot and Ram and Bronco and 49er. He's been in the league a while, but he for some reason didn't break out until 4 or 5 years into his career, and he's been playing at a high level, kind of disappearing from headlines right now. But what do you think of him as a possible number 2?
Well, we just talked about Laurent Robinson. I think Lloyd could possibly fit that position too. I mean, the Vikings, they should be looking, whether it's through the draft or through free agency, to try to get that. They should be looking at anyone they can to try and be that definitive number 2, because I'm starting to think about the same thing you were saying earlier, that I don't know if Jerome Simpson. Yeah, Jerome Simpson, that's it. I don't know if he's really number 2 material that much. I think he'd be much better off as another option.
Right. Why don't we go to the defensive back category, which there isn't a lot left out there. Antoine Cason just got signed. Asamoah, I don't want Asamoah, but he's looks like he's going to the 49ers. A couple guys I have on this list are Michael Huff of the Raiders, who plays safety primarily. I'm just going to say nay. Just
because you don't want any Raiders.
He's a Raider. I don't want him. What about you?
I don't know. I mean, the Vikings, they do need help in that area, but I really don't know enough about Michael Huff to know whether I can say yay.
I'm not against the Raiders all that much. He was a first-round pick. He's not a bad safety, but I think Sanford kind of came on last year, and I don't think safety is as glaring of an issue as cornerback right now. Some corners I have on the list here. Mike Jenkins of the Dallas Cowboys. Yay or nay?
Didn't we just have a player named Mike Jenkins?
Yeah, we did. He was a wide receiver, though.
Oh, that's right. I remember now. Well, Dallas Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys did have a pretty good defense for a while there last year. Kind of broke down at the end, though.
Yeah, I haven't watched a lot of Cowboys games, but Jenkins, I know his first couple of years in the league were okay. I just haven't heard a lot about him and haven't really seen him make any significant plays or anything. But, not every guy's that has to be a big playmaker that can provide your defense. As long as you got experience out there, which the Vikings do need a corner right now. Jenkins has been in the league a few years. I think he can bring something to the table. I'll say yay on that one. Another guy, Derek Cox out of Jacksonville. Most of you probably don't even know who he is, but he is not a bad defensive back. I'm gonna say yay, just because he could play a pretty good nickel spot, which Josh Robinson might be our nickel if we draft a guy. This is all without the draft into consideration too. I shouldn't say that, but just free agent pickups that could help out the team. And I think Cox could help out the team.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go a different direction. I really do think the Vikings could get a good corner in the draft.
I do too.
And, I mean, for the draft, you might not even be spending that much money after you draft a guy to sign him.
Yeah.
And you might be getting a guy who's got better overall ability,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, these rookies are so unpredictable these days at every position. Why not just take a chance on someone through the draft and see how it works out?
Well, what about this? If there is any way at all that we can re-sign him, Antoine Winfield, yay or nay? I think I already know the answer.
Yeah,
let's both say it at the same time.
Yay!
Absolutely. He's not going to make 7.5 like he was, and he's still out there in the open market, which tells you a lot about the cornerbacks of this year's class, and just I think their secondaries have become better all around the league, and there's just not a lot of need for corners on some of these teams. But Winfield, I mean, he can help out any team. He's still a hard-hitting safety, and if he comes back at a cheaper price, I think we can get him. I wouldn't rule out re-signing him. So, well, that was our show for today. Hope you guys liked it, and we will be back next week with you. This is B and
NJ
on Vikings Cavalcade.
Yes, sir. See you later.
Have a good night.